There's your stupid hat, dipshit.
Dad, you can't talk to Jerry that way anymore. We're a real family now. In many ways, things will be like season 1, but more streamlined. Now Jerry and I are happily married parents, and the idea that I was motivated by a fear of you leaving can be eschewed.
Eschewed? You've never used that word. Maybe you are a clone.
It's not like Rick would tell us.
Holy crap, everybody. So that was the Rick and Morty finale. I think the biggest surprise is wondering whether or not Beth was still a clone and why they chose this episode in particular to be the finale and not episode 7, which was more of like a big mythology episode. So I'll try to address that after I do Easter eggs, but I'm also going to do a season 4 video and I'll explain what my weekly bonus video schedule is going to be for Rick and Morty now that we're in the off season and when I think that season 4 is actually going to get here. So be sure to subscribe to get everything if you're just finding me for the first time. There'll be giveaway stuff at the end of the video too. So obviously this is Rick versus the United States president. That's all it really ended up being. There was a small name drop for Evil Morty, but he was really only referenced. He didn't physically appear in the episode. Neither did Tammy, the Federation, Phoenix Person, any of that big stuff. So obviously they're all leaving that for season 4. The title of the episode, The Rickchurian-Morty Date, is a reference to the movie The Manchurian Candidate, but is also a bit of a Gravity Falls Easter egg, The Stanchurian Candidate, even though the plot of both of those episodes is a little bit different. But it seems like they were only using the episode to wrap up the divorce storyline, like basically reset everyone back to season 1 as Beth breaks the fourth wall at the end of the episode. I guess she knows that she's inside a television show now too. But the whole president story was kind of like a bad breakup that Rick then later reset when he pretended to be fly fishing Rick. So when they open the episode, they sort of use the 24 digital clock text at the bottom. They don't use the 24 transition sound though. Rick burns the hell out of people that play Minecraft, then kind of burns himself. Like he's like, do autistic people play this? Because I'm really loving it. So I guess Rick is saying that he's autistic. When he breaks the fourth wall again, saying that South Park did it 4 years ago, he's talking about the episode where they do the how do you tame a horse in Minecraft, where they put child lock on everybody's TVs. They have that joke about them flying the helicopter all the way to their house when Rick can travel anywhere he wants in an instant. Because there's always TV shows where people wonder how characters get around so quickly, like how did he get here if he was just over here on the other side of the earth? So they said that several times through the episode. Don't you realize that Rick could teleport everywhere? He can travel anywhere he wants? The janitor that the Googas kill at the beginning of the episode is drawn to look exactly like one of the writers of the episode, Mike Mahan. He appears in some of those behind the scenes features that they do. Most of you probably know that the Googas was an old Channel 101 skit that Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland did a long time ago, almost 10 years ago. I talked a little bit about it last week.
Come on. What the hell are these crazy Googas? Right? That's what we're gonna call them?
They think of themselves as Ghostbusters. The device that Morty's using to detect the Googas looks exactly like the device they used to detect ghosts in that first Ghostbusters movie. There were a whole bunch of special underground rooms in the White House, so if you were a conspiracy theorist about the government, this episode is probably like candy to you, because there are so many things that they imply about our nation's history and some of our most famous presidents. So there's the Kennedy sex tunnels, the Truman cocaine lounge, the McKinley hooker dump, in the Lincoln Slave Coliseum. Later in the episode when they're fighting each other, they crash through most of those rooms, but I don't think we ever make it to the Slave Coliseum. But there's a bunch of extra stuff that you spot in there. Like when they crash into the Truman Cocaine Lounge, there's a bowl of cocaine just waiting to go in case anybody happens in, and he throws it at Rick, so I guess Rick is super high by the end of the episode. But if you remember Toxic Rick versus Rick going around their house just grabbing all kinds of hidden secret weapons, that's kind of the thing that they have going here. There's all kinds of hidden weapons all over the White House that he tries to take Rick down with. When I saw these kids pop out, at first I thought they were the kids from The Shining, but they actually look a little more like the kids from Escape to Witch Mountain, which is basically just two little kids with psionic abilities. So then when they crash through the McKinley hooker dump, you spot a bunch of fake news sets that looks like they filmed and faked the moon landing, along with the Kennedy assassination, 9/11, that's actually a pretty big one. And there was actually the callback to episode 1 where Rick is watching that and starts to think that it's an inside job. along with the jungle set and Washington crossing the Delaware. So it's like they're saying that a lot of our nation's biggest, most WTF events were all completely faked. There's even a UFO set too. But they do say that there's an Area 51 where they're keeping Poseidon locked up, a living god that won't submit. So there are a lot of contradictory things. Like, they do have a lot of fantastic stuff, but a lot of the real-life fantastic stuff that America has supposedly done was, I guess, faked based on what Rick and Morty is saying. So like I said, if you really love government conspiracy theories, this is your episode. But jumping over to the Beth storyline, so this is like the big question after the episode. Is she really a clone? And the way they left it, they're like, well, we'd never really tell you if she was. She asserts herself as a clone a couple times in the episode, but I think the real clue is in that first conversation she's having with him when he says, wait a minute, you're not just pretending to believe me when I say that you're not a clone, because I would have to terminate you if you became self-aware. So that really just means that they're both lying to each other, but I think that Rick's reaction to her at the end of the episode when he comes to the cabin says it all. He says, Beth, you're my daughter, and you have to remember that Rick is C-137 Rick, but he's jumped into several different bodies over the course of the season, just season 3. So even in last week's episode, he told the original Beth from this reality, you're not my Beth, but all Ricks love their Beths. So ultimately, it doesn't matter if her consciousness is in a different body, he's going to love the clone just like it were the real Beth. So he's going to treat her the same way, which means that he won't kill her, so he's kind of stuck with the family because clone Beth actually does love Jerry. And that's one of the other times that Beth is like, yeah, I'm basically a clone because I'm not the real Beth because I love you. And there's even all that weirdness with Summer, like she's super cool with her having sex. If the results are too strong, make sure you use protection. Anytime a big character like that goes through a 180 overnight, you just have to be suspicious about stuff like that. But hopefully that answers the question about clone Beth. Like, she's going to be treated like original Beth from this reality, and she's effectively the exact same thing. And by the end of the episode, when she says, Rick would never tell us otherwise, so it's sort of their way of saying that they're never definitively going to say, yes, this is a clone, no, this is original Beth. Like, you just left to wonder, even though I think all the clues are there. She's a clone, it's just that they're never going to call her out as that. You probably picked up on Dan Harmon's voice too when they were at the crappy mall. Like, they get really meta with those subtitles. Whoever's typing them when they go to the different locations, I guess, really hates this mall. They just type crappy mall. Then it's Dan Harmon's voice on that PA.
All this spring clothes, Mark. There's clothes sale.
There were a whole bunch of Easter eggs when they went to see that tiny civilization. The people that found them in the hazmat suits call them El Gugatos, which I guess is their version of Gugas in Spanish. But Rick and the president go back and forth. They make a couple movie references. Shrinking 70s Style is a fantastic Voyage reference. That's actually a 60s movie, so they're a little off on the decade. But the pills and the ship look like they're right out of Fantastic Voyage and Inner Space. Then when they make the joke about growing like you're in a 50s movie, that's Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. There's a whole bunch of visual gags, like he's wearing a top with no bottom, so you basically have naked President Keith David for a large portion of the episode. Like, he just walks with his bits swinging around in the wind. We learn that Rick is afraid of pirates, and the government apparently gets all of its information about him from his Wikipedia page. But Rick fixes Israel and Palestine by getting them super high and taking them to a Star Wars cantina. Then there's a big conspiracy tear where Rick calls himself out, and he's sort of calling out conspiracy theorists too when he says, I'm Doctor Who in this mother. I could be a hologram. I could be a clone. I could be a clone being controlled with a headset, evil Morty style, by the real Rick and Morty that are having sex with your mother. So that's sort of your evil Morty wink, like being controlled with a headset by another version of Rick and Morty. So that's about as close as we get to evil Morty in the episode. People thought that this was them taking a swipe at conspiracy theorists, but they're also working in some real things from Rick and Morty, like they've actually done some of these things. And I forget who you are, but somebody in my timeline said that on the back of Jerry's robe here are the Chinese characters for week, which is totally appropriate for Jerry's character. But I don't know why he would wear a robe that actually said week. Maybe that's just Jerry being stupid, not realizing what's going on. But if there was any confusion, Fly Fishing Rick at the end of the episode is our Rick pretending to be Fly Fishing Rick so that he can stay on this reality and sort of reset his relationship with the president. because before he has it out with his family, he's intending to go somewhere else. But there are a couple of times in the episode where he says it's a real bitch to go to a different reality. That's the writers saying that we're not just going to like wash our hands of this storyline and jump to another reality and reset all this character development that's happened this season. So Morty's gotten a little bit smarter, more assertive. So the title of the episode seems like it's more of a reference to that. Morty being controlled by Rick most of this season, and then Morty sort of shaking off that control. And also, based on what Rick says to Jerry at the end of the episode, it seems like he's his true nemesis now. Like when they say arch nemesis in the episode, Jerry is the ultimate villain for Rick that he'll never be able to take down. Even though you have other people like Evil Morty swirling in the background that seem like more traditional villains. Like, Jerry beats Rick, the thing that you never thought would be able to happen. He's this cancer that they can't get rid of, hijacking his family, so Rick is stuck with them, and that's why he's so pissed off at the end of the episode. So sort of my final judgment is that it was actually a good episode of Rick and Morty, but as a finale, it was kind of weak. Like, you hope that they build up to something a little bit bigger. So like episode 7 probably would have been a better finale, but they would have had to wrap up the divorce storyline. So you can kind of see how they structured things, because a lot of this stuff that they did with the divorce wouldn't have worked in episode 7. So it's a little bit messy, but like they say, they're resetting things to more of a season 1 narrative style, so we'll see what season 4 looks like. But as for the Mr. Poopy Butthole post-credits scene, that was them sort of calling out the fans like, hey, just don't sit around and do nothing waiting for season 4 to get here. But you do see the pictures in the background, so I guess this Mr. Poopy Butthole actually did have adventures in these past couple of years with this version of the family. But again, it's just a rip on the post-credits scene from season 2, and I think he was a little more specific in that version of the scene. This time, they're a little more general, like it's gonna be a long time before season 4 gets here, but I'll talk a little bit about that when I post my season 4 video. That'll be tomorrow, but let me know in the comments if you spotted any other references that I didn't mention in the episode, and let me know what you thought of it in general. I know it's gonna be very divisive, but there's a new round of the merch giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber, leave a comment on this video. Congratulations to the last winner, Brill-chan. Please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. You can click here for more Easter eggs, and you can click here for brand new Flash Season 4. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.